where are we currently in the hype cycle with regards to AI? We've been talking about AI for a year and a half now, when everyone's seen, and we've seen multiple technologies being spoken about for a year or two, blockchain, other things, and now it's AI. If you can start with you, Umesh.
This is a great place to start, Vinod. Look, as you said here at Davos, AI is the topic du jour. And by the way, it was last year as well. And I think it's the classic. Every time a new transition of this sort of occurs, whether it was the internet or cloud or now AI, I feel like most constituents, most business leaders, government leaders, overhype what this transition could do in the very near term, and that leads to heightened expectations, possibly disappointments, which then leads to what's called the valley of disillusionment, which in itself is not a bad thing, because that's where realism sets in and practical reality sets in. But I think the mistake we must all avoid is, post the valley of disillusionment, we should also not underestimate the impact this trend would have in the medium term. So where are we in this cycle? At Uniphore, we serve close to 2,000 enterprise customers, large banks, telecom companies, retail companies. We are beginning to see large-scale adoption of agentic AI, especially in our clients in the US and beginning in the Europe. Asia is right behind, this time the gap is narrow between US and Asia. But here's the difference. I think people ask me, which industry are you seeing the trend more or less? This time, it's less about the differentiation in industry. We see use cases across every industry. It's the quality of leadership of a company that's right now making the difference. I see most of my big new projects are happening when the CEO is sponsoring the initiative. They have a clear goal of either increasing revenue or efficiency or EBITDA, and that's leading to major initiatives of agentic AI. We have customers in banking who are using agentic AI for compliance. We have telecom companies who are dramatically reducing headcount in call centers. We have retail companies who are moving agentic AI into marketing and content creation and campaign generation. And finally, we have airlines, which are beginning to use this in revenue cycle management. So across the board, we are seeing use cases. But at the same time, the reason it hasn't proliferated right now is the distinguishing factor between companies who are using it versus not is the quality of leadership.
What are the type of mandates that you are getting early on? And are clients looking at functional part or total transformation of a business? We can start with you.
So goes back to my point of quality of leadership. Our biggest projects are originating from the CEO's desk. And when that happens, the framework we ask them to think about is, AI is powerful, agentic AI is powerful. Do you want AI to get you to do same with less? Or do you want it to do more for same? So the framework is, are you really looking to extract cost and efficiency and therefore free cash flow? Or are you looking to grow your business with similar cost as you had before? And the mandates coming from CEOs really determines the direction this takes. Mm-hmm. We're also beginning to see, and that's a theme emerging even at Davos this year, is a lot of people are stuck at POCs and pilots. And people are talking about, what are those case studies? Why aren't we hearing about it all across? And I think if you think about a trend spotting situation, and we come back next year and validate this, watch for companies who are today saying we have 200, 300, 400 use cases with AI, versus companies which are saying I have 5, 6, 7, but I'm going to be very focused and deliver real value this year. So the companies that are going for headlines and big metrics that I have 400 use cases, chances are this time next year, they'll be stuck in POCs. Because this is the year where leaders have to dedicate themselves and their companies to say, we have a handful of initiatives. We have clear either revenue goals or cost goals, whatever be the goals, and we're going to move from POC to pilot to production company-wide. And we are beginning to see, to the point that Lakshmanan was making, the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. Companies that are beginning to see this, their earnings are beginning to look very different on a quarter-on-quarter basis, because AI is delivering on those goals. Others who are playing around with it, still in the POC mode, I think Wall Street is beginning to punish them, And we are beginning to see a gap between AI premiums being paid versus not.
So one of the things that is a big question in AI is basically the war going on between China, US. India also wants to position itself as a strong AI player. We have this AI mission which will work with the industry and lay out a roadmap. What should the AI mission look at in terms of putting an ecosystem which can make India a prime player in the AI game?
Well, if you think about the assets available, because I always think about a framework of where will you reinvent the wheel versus where can you create differentiation and intellectual property. So the assets available with India as a sovereign is a vast amount of population and therefore use cases that are very unique to India. Yeah. If you think about use cases in agriculture, the problem that Indian farmers face and that AI can solve are very different from a problem that American farmers face. Similarly, healthcare in rural India is going to be very different from healthcare in California. And so the opportunity at a fundamental level is to think about those end use cases which have a citizen scale impact for India. Now, whether that translates into creating India's own foundational models with the data available, or whether that means partnering with a friendly country who has foundational model, whether it's public sector or private sector, and then fine-tuning them and creating applications and agents, that's a direction that the India AI mission will ultimately decide. But I think the opportunity for India is very unique to first solve problems for itself and then potentially become an exporter of this AI to similarly developing economies and countries where linguistics, language, base of the pyramid, the economic conditions that look alike from India, there is an opportunity for India to be the leader in those economies and the global south, as Prime Minister Modi talks about.